Tennis fans, sleepy picks here. I was waiting for the qualifiers to finish, but it doesn't look like those are going to get completed tonight. So we're going to go through our draw reaction for the U.S. Open. We'll give you some first round picks. Let's take a look at the draw. Here's a look at Zverev's eighth of the draw. We got Zverev coming in as the number one overall seed in this tournament. He's going to take on Lorenzo Sonego first round. Head-to-head here is 6-0 in favor of Zverev. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about Alexander Zverev. He's 17-7 on the hard courts, 24-9 last year, 29-10 the year before. Hasn't had the greatest of hard court summer seasons. A loss to Griekspoor in the second round of Montreal, and then a loss to Tommy Paul in 3 sets in Cincinnati. And did have a match point in that match, just wasn't able to close it out. Could have been a straight set win for him. Maybe he'd get a little bit more confidence. Maybe he would have been able to win the title there, but we'll never know. Sonego, on the other hand, he's 5-5 on the hard courts, 11-14 last year, 10-14 the year before. He's coming off a loss to James Duckworth in Winston-Salem, 7-5, 6-3. Was able to beat Hughes Herbert and Manarino to get to the third round there. Let's talk about this head-to-head here. 6-0 in favor of Zverev. Their last meeting coming in Beijing last year is a 6-4, 6-3 win for Alexander Zverev. They did play on the grass in 2025 as well in Halle. It was a 3-6, 6-4, 7-6 win for Zverev. So a little bit more of an interesting match there. But I kind of attribute some of that to the hometown nerves that Zverev always has when he plays in Halle. And then also, I think Sonego does play pretty solid on the grass. We watched him against Taylor Fritz at Wimbledon. I thought that was a very impressive match. He lost it in 4, but really the first, for all 4 sets, it really felt like that match was a coin flip match. Taylor Fritz just coming up with some of the bigger shots. Guys, I don't think this is going to be a slip up here for Alexander Zverev. I'm not sure if he gets it done in straight so, because he really hasn't looked great. Do we think, this is probably going to be a night match? Do we think he's going to come out and just roll Sonego in 3 sets? I'm not sure about that. I'm going to go with Zverev to advance here, but I think he's going to do it in 4. The next match is Quinton Halys against Diaz Acosta. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Diaz Acosta. We'll talk about that in a second. Halys coming in, he's 18-11 on the hard courts this year, 12-14 last year, 6-6 the year before. Prior to this year, he hasn't had a winning season on the hard courts since 2021, where he went 14-8. Was able to make a run through the qualifiers into the second round of Cincinnati, losing to Alex de Minaur 7-6 in the third there. Was able to beat Kwon, Bu, and Kopcheva to get out to the second round there. Lost a tough second round match in Winston-Salem, 6-3 in the third to Bonzi. And we just saw Bonzi advance to the semis. Diaz Acosta, on the other hand, he's 1-2 on the hard court, 6-5 last year, 3-8 the year before. He's coming off a win in the San Marino Challenger, was able to win that Challenger over Polchek. The head-to-head is 1-0. Diaz Acosta able to take out Quinton Halys at Winston-Salem in 3 sets, 6-4 in the third there in the first round. I don't know how much weight I want to put into that tournament because, as we're seeing this year, it's a little bit up in the air. And I feel like the priorities of some of these players is to preserve the body for the U.S. Open. I'm going to take Halys here. I don't do it with a lot of confidence, but you have Diaz Acosta only playing 3 hard court matches this year, as opposed to 56 clay court matches. Halys a little bit more evenly spread out. So I'm going to take Halys. I think he gets this one done in 4. Next match is Hanfmann taking on Tabilo. This will be a really interesting match. Head-to-head here is 2-1 in favor of Tabilo. We'll talk about that in a second. Hanfmann coming in. He's 7-6 on the hard courts, 12-9 last year, 8-11 the year before. And he's coming off a loss to Arthur Fils in the second round of Cincinnati. Was able to beat Van Asche there, losing to Fils 7-6, 6-1. In Montreal, he notched a really nice win over Koboli in straight sets before losing to Borges in the third round. Tabilo, on the other hand, he's 10-8 on the hard courts, 20-13 last year, 13-8 the year before. He made a nice run to the semifinals of the DC Open where he lost to Jodar 6-4 in the third there. Was able to beat Ben Shelton and Terrence Altmaier and Talon Griespor on his way to the semis. Comes into Montreal, loses in straight sets to Hurkacz. We know Hurkacz is a very tricky customer on the hard courts. And then in Cincinnati, he played Rafael Jodar against and lost 6-2, 6-1. And this was the match where Tabilo just looked completely lost, wasn't really sure what he was doing, had no idea how to counter the power of Jodar. As you mentioned before, the head-to-head is 2-1 in favor of Tabilo. However, Hanfmann got the most recent win on the indoor hard courts. It was a 7-5, 6-4 win back in 2024 in the Davis Cup indoor hard courts. They played twice on clay, and those are both won by Tabilo. We know he's a very solid clay courter. But we've seen that game translate over here now onto the hard courts. He did have, even though he lost to Jodar in the DC Open, did have a nice win against him at Indian Wells. So, guys, I'm leaning with Tabilo here. I think this is going to be a very tight match. It's going to be a 4 or 5 setter in my opinion. But I'm going to go with Tabilo to advance here. I think he does it in 4. Our next match is Dane Sweeney taking on Corentin Moutet. No head-to-head between these two guys. Let's take a look at Dane Sweeney first. Coming in, he's 18-18 on the hard court, 71-24 last year, 18-19 the year before. He's made a little bit of a step up to the tour level this year, so that's why we're seeing that record kind of level out a little bit. He's coming off a loss to De Jong in the Quebec Challenger, 7-5, 6-0. He also is riding a 4-match losing streak, had a win over Duncan Chan in Vancouver, but has lost 4 straight matches to Malofsky, Mochizuki, O'Connell, and De Jong. Moutet, on the other hand, he's 6-8 on the hard courts, 15-12 last year, 4-6 the year before. He's coming off a 3-set loss to Jodar in Montreal. Was able to beat Fucsovics in the first round there and withdrew from Cincinnati. I believe he had a injury that he withdrew from, but I'll have to double check that. He was, before going into Montreal, he was on a 4-match losing streak as well, dating back to Queen's Club, where he lost to Fokina, then Shelby, then Giron at Wimbledon, Brooksby in Los Cabos, beats Fucsovics and loses to Jodar. Guys, this is a coin flip match here. We're probably going to have a 5-setter. I'm going to go with the more experienced Moutet. I do caution anyone against, maybe betting against Moutet. Just betting against Sweeney, though, because Sweeney's going to come in. He's going to be hungry. As we said, he's kind of started to elevate onto the tour level, looking to get some points, looking to make a name for himself. This is a great match to do it. I remember Dane Sweeney played, I think it was Gael Monfils in the Australian Open. Yes, he beat Monfils in the first round, and Monfils last year hasn't been playing the best of tennis. Dane Sweeney then goes and loses to Ben Shelton in straight sets in Melbourne. Lost in qualifiers at the French Open and lost in the first round to Dimitrov in straight sets. So I'm going to take Moutet to win this. I think it's going to be a tough 5-setter. Give me Moutet to advance in 5. Next match is going to be a popcorn match. We got Arthur Fery taking on Lorenzo Musetti. No head-to-head between these two guys. It'll be their first meeting. We got Arthur Fery coming in. He's 12-5 on the hard courts, 18-4 last year, 12-7 the year before. He's still going in the Winston-Salem Open. Was able to take out Alexander Kovacevic in 3 sets today in the quarterfinals. So I think we got to keep an eye out on how far he gets there, how intense some of these matches are for Arthur Fery, because he could be a little bit fatigued coming in. However, we do remember him making that run to the semifinals at Wimbledon where he was able to beat Virtanen in 4, Zizou Bergs in 5, Dimitrov in 5, sweeps a 3 straight set win over Kaboli, and then loses to Zverev in 3. And honestly, he gave Zverev all he could handle as well. So I don't know if fatigue really is a factor here for this guy, because he does seem to have energy to spare. Musetti, on the other hand, he's coming in 13-6 on the hard courts, 18-11 last year, 13-12 the year before. He was able to beat. He's coming off a loss to Tiafoe in straight sets in Cincinnati, where he was able to beat Altmaier, Zheng, and Fery before losing in the quarters to Tiafoe. And we did talk about Musetti. His two losses prior to that loss to Tiafoe were to Jodar, who's playing some very good hardcore tennis. Guys, I think this match really is predicated on Musetti serving well. He really has to be able to control with a surplus one. He's going to have the biggest shots on the court. You know, his forehand, stepping in on the backhand, the serve. He's going to be able to control most of the tempo. But the thing is, and we've seen this time and time again with Arthur Fery, he's such a gamer. He really just is able to stick in these, kind of wait for the level to dip, and then he attacks. And then he's able to extend these matches. We saw it at Wimbledon against Zizou Bergs, who blew that lead against him. We saw it against Dimitrov, who was up 2-1 on him and not able to close him out. So this is such a tricky match for Musetti, and you look at his draw, you look at the draw for when they come out here, whoever wins this match is probably going to go to the round of 16. The predictor's telling me Musetti, and I have some questions about Fery. If he plays a couple more long matches and then has to come in here, Musetti's going to be ready to go. Musetti's looked great. You know, he's taking care of business against players that he should be beating, but he doesn't really step up. You know, that Jodar match, a tough 3-setter, and then a straight set loss. And then Tiafoe, he had plenty of opportunities to win both those sets and loses in straights. I'm going to trust that Musetti's going to be able to turn this on. He's got all the talent in the world. He should be winning this match. So I'm going to go with Musetti. He's going to win this one in 5 sets. Because Zverev's 8th of the draw with our picks. And we'll have another video out once the qualifiers have been completed. I do like Zverev's draw here, though. I think he's going to be able to get out. The round of 32 match is going to be a little bit tricky against Tabilo, but he should be able to take care of him. We saw Jodar with the big serving and really just pushing Tabilo around. I think Zverev can do the same thing. Then he plays either Musetti, maybe Fery, maybe Darderi in the round of 16. That's going to be a little bit of a trickier match, but I like Zverev to get out here to the quarterfinals at least. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. Here's a look at Demonar's 8th of the draw. He's coming in as the number 6 seed. First match we're going to talk about here is Jodar taking on Kokkinakis. No head-to-head between these two guys, but this is going to be a fun match here. We got Jodar coming in. He's 26-9 on the hard courts, 23-9 last year, 0-1 the year before. He's coming off a 3-set loss to Caboli in Cincinnati, but he's had an amazing summer, getting to the finals of DC, losing to Taylor Fritz, getting to the semis of Montreal, losing to Brandon Nakashima. He's beaten players such as Tabilo, Musetti, Lehechka, Fils. So just an incredible run for Jodar this summer. Kokkinakis, on the other hand, he's 2-3 on the hard courts, 3-1 last year, 19-12 the year before. And he's coming off a tough 3-set loss to Borges in Cincinnati, 7-6 in the third there. Did also play Montreal against Popyrin, where he lost in qualifiers, had to retire in the qualifier round there. Guys, you know, I've kind of learned my lesson this year with Kokkinakis. He comes out in these Grand Slams, and you think, okay, like, how is this guy gonna have the endurance? He hasn't been playing these matches. He hasn't been able to show us like any type of consistency. And we watched him go out in the French Open and beat Terence Ottman, who was the home crowd favorite. Then he had to retire against Carreno Busta. And then we saw him go 5 sets with Bublik. So for me here, guys, obviously Jodar's a higher level than both of those guys, in my opinion, on the hard court. But this is not a person that we should really take for granted. Do we think this is going to be Jodar in 3 easy sets? I don't think so. I think a lot of this is going to rely on how well Kokkinakis is going to be able to serve. And I know I kind of said the same thing about Musetti, but I do feel that way against Kokkinakis. If he's able to really connect with that first serve and keep Jodar at bay, then he's got a fighting chance. However, we know Jodar is one of the best returners in the game now. He's able to just really put pressure on you. And I'll be curious to see how Kokkinakis handles that pressure. If that's going to force him to maybe hit a little bit bigger on the second serve, or if he's going to feel like maybe he needs to make more of those firsts. So I gotta go with Jodar here, obviously. I'm picking Jodar. I think he's gonna win this tournament, guys. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy. He's 19 years old, but we saw Carlos do it 4 years ago. So for me, this doesn't seem that far out of the realm of possibilities. This guy's playing some great tennis. You look at this draw here. I really like how it's shaped up for him. He's been hitting with Minaur in practices at the U.S. Open, so I think that's a huge plus for him. He's going to have that familiarity if they meet each other in the round of 16. But I'm going to go with Jodar here. I think he wins this 1 in 4. This match is Marozsan taking on Michael Zheng, and these guys just played a few weeks ago. Head-to-head is 1-0 in favor of Michael Zheng. We'll talk about that match in a second. Marozsan coming in, he's 9-9 on the hard courts, 13-12 last year, 15-11 the year before. He lost to Duckworth today in the Winston-Salem Open in 3 sets, so he's going to be able to rest a few days before this match. Was able to beat Khachanov and Martin Dam on his way to the quarterfinals there. Michael Zheng, on the other hand, he's 16-7 on the hard courts, 22-6 last year, 9-5 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Musetti in Cincinnati in straight sets, and this was a pretty straightforward match with 6-1, 6-3 for Musetti, and it was a good example of Musetti's talent level. And this is that's for me, that's such a good example of what Musetti can do. That's how he should be beating Arthur Fery in this first round. Now, do I think it's actually going to go that way? No, but if he connects with his shots, he's so tough to beat. He's so tough to hang with. Zheng was able to beat Echargui, Trevor Svajda, Marozsan, and Humbert to get to the third round there. As you mentioned before, the head-to-head's 1-0. Zheng was able to beat Marozsan in Cincinnati. It was a 3-6, 6-1, 7-6 match. And, this match kind of had a little bit of a back-and-forth feel to it. And a lot of it was reliant, again, I hate reusing this over and over again, on how Marozsan served. He came out, was serving extremely well in that first set, was able to win at 6-3, put a lot of pressure on the Zheng serve. He was getting some looks early on, finally gets the break. But then you see the numbers kind of dip a little bit there, and Zheng's able to take that second set. They go back and forth. Marozsan has some great chances early on in that third set. They get to the breaker, and it's 7-1 to Michael Zheng. And that just shows you this guy is just such a good, steady player. He's going to grind you down. Let's also remember, Michael Zheng coming from Colombia, so he's familiar with New York City. I know that, you kind of think, oh, that's kind of, what does that matter? I mean, we kind of saw with DK Suresh and Roddering, that familiarity with, for them, it's the college territory in Wake Forest at the Winston-Salem Open. For Michael Zheng, he's been around here. He's played juniors here at the U.S. Open. He was a hitting partner for some of these guys before he was ever in the main draw, and now he finds himself in the main draw. So I feel like there is a lot of familiarity. There's not going to be a, wide eyes coming out here under the lights of the U.S. Open. So I'm going to go with Michael Zheng here, guys. I really like the way that he's been playing. I love the fact that, he's qualified for all 3 of the slams. The Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon. And here he gets a wild card, so he doesn't have to go through the qualifiers. I got to go with Zheng here. I think he's going to take this one. I'm going to go with Michael Zheng to advance in 4. Next one's going to be really interesting. We got Svajda taking on Daniel Altmaier. Head-to-head here is 2-0 in favor of Altmaier, but they haven't played since 2023. We'll talk about that in a second. Svajda coming in, he's 17-9 on the hard courts, 18-15 last year, 27-21 the year before. Let's not forget that he was retired in the DC Open because of it looked like fatigue. Was up a set in a break on Cruz Hewitt. Then all of a sudden, Cruz Hewitt fights back, wins the second set in a breaker, goes up 2-0 in the third set, and Svajda just calls it quits. Gets a lucky loser spot back in the main draw of DC, plays Vukic and loses in straight sets 6-3, 6-1. Then he comes out to Montreal, plays Shapovalov, who just was coming off the Los Cabos final. And remember, Shapo's body kind of just gave out. He had nothing left to give there. And Svajda was able to beat him. Then loses in 3 sets to Arthur Feast. And we saw how good Arthur Feast was playing in Cincinnati. And then in Cincinnati, he lost in straight sets to Bellucci, but it was 2 tie breaks. So this is kind of like a hit or miss, but I do think that Svajda can turn it on at the U.S. Open. And let's not forget that he made it out to the second round. He had to qualify for this tournament last year. Made it out to the second round, beat Piros in straight sets, and then took a set off of Novak, the first set, but then only wins 7 games after that. Djokovic really turning it on there, but the backhand of Svajda really does take some players by surprise. It is extremely lethal. Altmaier, on the other hand, he's 3-9 on the hard courts, 11-16 last year, 5-9 the year before. He has not had a winning record on the hard courts since 2021. He's coming off a loss to Ignacio Buse in straight sets. Was able to beat Komasana to get to the third round there at the Winston-Salem Open. And his road here hasn't been great. Beat Vukic in 3 sets in Montreal. Loses to Nakashima in straights. Okay, Nakashima's playing some pretty good tennis. Beats Coleman Wong in 3 sets. We just saw Coleman Wong qualify for this tournament. Loses to Musetti in straights. Beats Komasana in straights and loses to Buse in straights. So it's been, again, very similar to Svajda. A little bit of hit or miss here. Altmaier does hold the 2-0 record. He got a win in the Puerto Vallarta Challenger in 2021 in 3 sets over Svajda, and then he beat Svajda on the indoor hard courts of Dallas. Guys, I'm going with Zach Svajda here. I think he's, that was back in 2023 where Altmaier was able to get that win, and I think Svajda's a much better player, a much more seasoned player, and he's starting to figure out how to kind of beat some of these top guys or at least hang with these top guys. I think he'll come out with a good game plan against Altmaier. We talk about that Altmaier backhand, you can really expose it. If he's not able to step in on that side, he does tend to leave it a little bit short. So I would expect Svajda to really go after that with his backhand. But I'm going to go with Zach Svajda to advance here. I think he's going to do it in 5 sets. This next one is going to be a little bit interesting. We got Manuel Cerundolo taking on Casper Ruud. Head-to-head here is 2-1 in favor of Cerundolo. We'll talk about that in a second. They've actually played twice this year and once last year, so we got a lot of recent history between these two guys. Manuel Cerundolo is coming in. He's 7-5 on the hard courts, 10-9 last year, 0-3 the year before. And he just lost in the Winston-Salem Open to Ignacio Buse in 3 sets, 6-2 in the third there. And it was a little bit of a tough match for Buse there. The forehand just kind of went off a little bit, something that I wasn't really used to seeing from him, where Cerundolo normally is very, very airtight, getting all these balls back. But today, for some reason, he just wasn't able to connect with some of these shots against Buse. Casper Ruud, on the other hand, he's 8-9 on the hard courts, 12-8 last year, 21-9 the year before. He's coming off a retirement loss to O'Connell, and remember, I believe it was the back that was bothering him. So we got to keep an eye on that. Now we're in a 3 out of 5 set scenario here, and you're playing a guy that is just ready to go out there, and he wants to play. He can play a 5-hour match, a 6-hour match if he has to. Can that Casper Ruud body hold up? Ruud did play, let's talk about their head-to-head here. So they played in 2025 in Gstaad. It was a 3-set win for Manuel Cerundolo. Then they played in this year in Gstaad. And it seemed like Ruud was in total control. He was coming into net, playing everything aggressive, and that's exactly what you want to do because Cerundolo gives you so much space that if you're able to, serve +1 or serve and come in or return and come in, you're really rushing Cerundolo, and that's where he struggles. But then we see, Cerundolo kind of digs his teeth into this match, gets that second set 7-5, and wins 6-2 in the third over Ruud, who just seemed to kind of tire out at the end of that match. And then in Montreal, they just played. It was a 6-1, 6-2 revenge match for Casper, winning there. And that's why I think a lot of people are going to look at this matchup and be like, well, Casper just beat him in straight sets easily. This is going to be an easy match. I don't agree with that. I think this is going to be a little bit of a trickier match than we think it might be. Let's keep in mind Cerundolo was able to take Sinner out of the French Open. Obviously, Sinner struggling with the heat that day, but again, you have a guy. He is not he is familiar with these bigger matches, and this is definitely a big one. Let's also remember too that Casper Ruud lost last year in the U.S. Open to Cognon, and didn't look great there. I believe that was a 5-setter. I'm gonna go with Casper to win this one. I'm a little bit shaky on this though, because I know what Juan Manuel Cerundolo is capable of. But when it comes down to it, he's having a great season. 32 and 20 overall, was 23 and 13 on the clay. Even got his first 2 wins on the grass. That tells you he's definitely having a good season. I'm gonna go Casper Ruud to win this. I think he does it in 4. Next match is Bergs and Taberner. No head-to-head between these two guys. We got Bergs coming in. He's 8 and 10 on the hard courts this year. 20 and 16 last year. 9 and 9 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Saccarides in the Quebec Challenger. That's a little bit concerning there for Zizou Bergs. Was able to beat Pellegrino to get to the quarterfinals in that tournament. I do have to say, I like the fact that Bergs went to a challenger, trying to get a few more reps before the U.S. Open because he had a first-round loss in D.C. to Fritz, okay, the eventual champion. Had a third-round loss to Shelton in Montreal, okay, the eventual champion. And then lost in straights to Merida in Cincinnati. And Merida playing some very good tennis. Taberner, on the other hand, he's 0-2 on the hard courts, 1-3 last year, 0-3 the year before. So he is 1-8 over the last 3 years on the hard courts. He hasn't had a winning season on the hard courts since 2017 when he was 4-2. You can tell this guy likes the clay. And he's coming off a loss to Jan Kumstad 7-5 and by retirement. So that's a little bit interesting there. Not sure what the injury was, but we'll have to keep an eye on him. Guys, I think this is going to be Bergs for me. I think Bergs is going to be excited to get back to a Grand Slam setting. Remember, the last Grand Slam he was in was Wimbledon, where he blew a 2-1 lead. Was up a break, I believe, in the 4th set. Just not able to close out Arthur Fery. I think he's going to be looking to right some wrongs here. I think he's going to come out ready to go. So give me Bergs to advance here in straights. Next match is Choinski against Bodek van Zandschulp. Head-to-head here is 2-1 in favor of Bodek. We'll talk about the head-to-head in a second. Let's talk about Choinski first. He's 3-6 on the hard courts this year, 0-4 last year, 4-4 the year before. So we're looking at 7-14 in the last 3 years. If you add the 4th year on, it's 8-18. So that's not great for Choinski on the hard courts. He's coming off a loss to Mies Rottering in Winston-Salem. Was a tough 3-setter there, but Rottering able to get through that match. And keep in mind, again, Rottering, Wake Forest player, has the familiarity in Winston-Salem. Choinski is on a 3-match losing streak. Was able to win the Bonn Challenger, though, in early August, but hasn't won a match since. Lost tough 3 breakers to Toronto in Cincinnati. Bodek, on the other hand, he's 10-8 on the hard courts, 13-11 last year, 9-11 the year before. He lost in straights today against Bonzi, who played great. I just think Bodek really didn't have it. Bonzi had all the answers to everything that Bodek was throwing at him. It was an impressive performance from him. And keep in mind, Bodek was coming into that match. He'd only dropped 3 games. But maybe the fact that he hadn't been challenged in the previous 2 matches kind of cost him in that quarterfinal match against Bonzi. As we mentioned before, the head-to-head is 2-1 in favor of Bodek. Choinski got the first win on the carpet back in 2018, a straight set win over Bodek. Bodek getting some revenge on the clay in straight sets in 2018 as well. And then they just played last year in a challenger on clay, and Bodek was able to win 6-1, 6-0. Both guys are 30 years old. We got Bodek is 71, Choinski is 75 in the world. I'm kind of surprised at Bodek's rank, honestly. For the talent level that he has, he should be a little bit higher. Guys, I'm going with Bodek on Zandschulp. I think he's going to get this one done in straights. Here's a look at Minaur's 8th of the draw with our picks, and I'm leaning towards Jodar to get out of this round of 16 and get to the quarters. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. Here's a look at Auger-Aliassime's 8th of the draw. We got Felix coming in. He's the number 3 seed. We'll talk about him first. He's taking on Hijikata. And this is going to be an interesting match. No head-to-head between these two guys. Felix coming in. He's 9-6 on the hard courts, 24-10 last year, 6-10 the year before. Hasn't really had the summer season that he really wanted. Pulled out of Montreal due to a lower back issue. Comes into Cincinnati, beats Tsitsipas, beats Juan while Cerundolo, loses to Tiafoe in straights. Hijikata, on the other hand, he's 19-13 on the hard courts, 20-17 last year, 29-21 the year before. And he's had a decent summer. Started a little bit rough. First round loss to Chapo in Los Cabos. Chapo makes the final there. First round loss to Minaur in straight sets in Montreal. And then makes it to the third round of Cincinnati, losing to Menchik, but is able to beat Monfils and Darderi on the way there. In Winston-Salem, he lost to Bonzi in straight sets, who we've seen now is in the semifinals. Was able to beat Blanche and Collignon. Guys, I really think this might be a tricky match. Let's not forget, Hijikata a while ago was able to take a set off of Nadal at this tournament. So it's possible that, if Felix doesn't come out on fire, that Rinky's going to be able to get a hold of this match. And Rinky does a great job of pressuring you. He's got some good ground strokes. He's able to follow them in and come to net and put a little bit of a lot of pressure on you from the net. But let's keep in mind, Felix was able to make the semifinals last year of this tournament, so I think he's gonna get on these courts, get that familiarity back. Remember, he was able to beat Zverev, Rublev, de Minaur, losing to Sinner in 4 sets. And for a few sets there, he was giving Sinner everything he could handle with that forehand of his. I'm excited to see how Felix does in this tournament. I know we remember how discouraged he was at the French Open when he lost to Caboli, but then had a little bit of a happier mindset losing to Djokovic in the quarterfinals. For me, I think there's high expectations here for Felix coming in as the 3 seed. And now you're looking at this draw. Definitely to get to the round of 16, it should be him. But once he gets to that round of 16, you're going to have either Menchik or Lerner waiting for you. That might be a little bit tricky for him. But I like Felix to advance here over Rinky. I think he's going to do it in 4. This match is Burruchaga taking on Khachanov. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Khachanov. We'll talk about that in a second. Burruchaga is 2-7 on the hard courts, 4-5 last year, 2-3 the year before. He did play. I was trying to jog my memory. I'm like, I don't remember him playing in Montreal or Cincinnati. He did play both. Lost in the first round of Montreal to Popperin. Lost to Struff in the first round of Cincinnati, and lost to Kwame in straight sets in the Cancun Challenger. So not a great summer for him. He's on a 4-match losing streak. Khachanov, on the other hand, he's 6-9 on the hard courts, 13-11 last year, 14-12 the year before. He also has not won a match this summer on the hard courts, losing to Tomic in Los Cabos, Terence Ottman in Montreal, and Kovacevic in Cincinnati. 7-6 on the third there against Kova. Let's keep in mind that Khachanov lost all those Toronto points when he made the finals last year, losing to Ben Shelton, loses in the second round here this year. As you mentioned, the head-to-head is 1-0 in favor of Khachanov. He had a win in 2025 at Rome, 6-4, 5-7, 6-1 for him. On Burruchaga's favorite surface, though, so that's a little bit impressive there for Khachanov. Guys, we know what Khachanov's capable of. He can definitely come out here. He can rope that forehand and get comfortable on the surface. We just haven't seen it yet. Hasn't won a match on the hard courts. Neither has Burruchaga. Burruchaga's played a few tougher matches, but that straight set loss to Kwame is very concerning. Guys, I'm going to go with Khachanov to win this match. I don't think he's going to do it in straights. I feel like it's either going to be 4 or 5, because I think Khachanov just is the type of guy that allows these players to hang around. Burruchaga is a great counter puncher. He's going to be able to grind out some longer points against Khachanov, and we're going to see a lot of errors off the Khachanov racket, but I think he's going to be able to counter it with enough winners and serve pretty well to get through Burruchaga. So give me Khachanov to advance in 4. Next best is Molcan against Bonzi. No head-to-head between these two guys. Let's talk about Molcan first. He's coming in 1-2 on the hard court, 7-3 last year, 3-5 the year before. He's coming off a retirement loss to Zheng in the Hagen Challenger. That's going to be a little bit interesting. I'm not sure what that injury was, but we definitely got to keep an eye out for that. Benjamin Bonzi, on the other hand, he's 14-10 on the hard courts, 15-13 last year, 13-13 the year before. Hasn't had a losing record on the hard court since 2022, and he was able to beat Bodic today in the quarterfinals. He finds himself in the semifinals of the Winston-Salem Open. Guys, Bonzi's playing some good tennis again. With him, with Arthur Fery, we gotta watch them playing. How are their bodies gonna hold up here? Because they're going to have to turn around. The U.S. Open starts Sunday. I assume that, if these guys make the finals, that they'll give them a Monday or a Tuesday match. But still, it's only a day or two to recover, especially if you're playing a lot of these longer matches. Now, Bonzi's had only one really tough match against Halys. Had a straight set easy win over Hijikata and a straight set win over Bodic van de Zandschulp today. He plays Buse tomorrow. I'm gonna stick with Bonzi though. I like a player that's gonna come in with a lot of momentum. Whether or not he wins the Winston-Salem Open or even just making the semifinals, I think is enough for him to have that momentum, to have the confidence to beat a guy like Molcan. Molcan's a tough guy, a lot of variety. He's a lefty. He's going to throw in a lot of different looks for you. So he's going to try to bother the rhythm of Bonzi, but I don't think that's going to work on a hard court. So I'm going with Bonzi. I think he's going to take this one in 4. Next match is Buse taking on Giron. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Buse. They had a nice match in Queen's Club. And guys, this was... we'll talk about the match in a second. Buse coming in, he's 6-4 on the hard court, 6-5 last year, 3-3 the year before. He was able to beat Cerundolo today in the quarterfinals of the Winston-Salem Open, so he's still alive there. Is going to play Bonzi tomorrow. Would be interesting if we get that matchup again in the round of 64. That'd be kind of wild. Buse wasn't really having the greatest of hard court summers until the Winston-Salem Open. Lost to Norrie in straights, lost to Adam Walton in straights. Marcos Giron, he's 15-11 on the hard courts, 12-14 last year, 6-11 the year before. And he's riding a 3-match losing streak, starting in Montreal, where he lost to Hurkacz in 3 sets, Rocha in the qualifiers in straights, and DK Suresh in straights, and he did not look good in the DK match, did not look interested to be there. Once DK was able to get that break in the first set, it was curtains there, and then just so many unforced errors to give him the break late in that second set and allow him to serve that match out. Now, as we mentioned before, Buse and Giron did play. They played in Queen's Club. It was a 3-6, 7-5, 7-6 match, and guys, I can't remember I think it was 6-4 for Marcos Giron, and I remember watching this match, and I can't remember who I picked to win this match, but it was some of the 6-4 Marcos Giron, and it was some of the stupidest tennis I've ever seen. Just he was trying to go for a winner as hard as he can down the line, misses it wide. And I just couldn't get over it. Just make all the pressure's on Buse. He loses that point. The match is over. It's your match point. But Marco Giron wanted to hit that big winner, and it really cost him. Loses 10-8 in that breaker. Guys, this is tough for me. Because you have Giron, who's going to want revenge. You have Buse, who is going to be a little bit exhausted coming off that Winston-Salem tournament. And remember, guys, we watched Buse. He won Hamburg the week before the French Open, came in, played Rublev, and it was a match that he really could have pushed to 5, but just really didn't have the energy to do it. Now, obviously, Rublev, a much better player than Giron, but I can see this. I think Giron's going to come in extremely motivated to get a win over Buse. And to me, he should have won that match in Queen's Club. But guys, after watching that DK Suresh match, it's impossible for me to take Buse. It's impossible for me to take Marcos Giron. I just can't do it. I don't even. The level was just not. So many errors. Basically handed Suresh that match. Now Suresh actually, he returned really well. He put a lot of pressure on this Giron serve. But Marco Giron is a seasoned veteran. He should be getting through that match. He should not be losing in straights at the very least. So I'm going to go with Buse to advance here. I think he does it in 4. Match is Vallejo taking on Monfils. No head-to-head between these two guys. This is going to be a really fun match. We got Vallejo coming in. He's 5-4 on the hard courts. 1-4 last year. 7-4 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Bodø on Zandschulp 6-2, 6-0 in the Winston-Salem Open. Hasn't had the best of summer seasons. Lost to Jerry Zheng in Montreal. Was able to beat Jacquet and Vachereau, losing to Tommy Paul in 3 sets. Beats Kanena Buse in Winston-Salem and then loses to Bodø. Monfils, on the other hand, he's 3-6 on the hard courts. 14-9 last year. 15-11 the year before. And he's kind of done what we've expected. Got that first round win over Mychek in Montreal, then loses in 3 sets to Tien. Was putting on quite the show, though, in the second set. Got a 6-0 set over Lerner. Then in Cincinnati, he lost a 3-setter to Hijikata. Guys, just looking at this match, it's screaming 5 sets to me. I think we're going to get a real show here. I think Vallejo is going to prevail, but I think Monfils is going to have something to say about it before all is said and done. But give me Vallejo to advance in 5. Next match is Lerner Tien taking on Nuno Borges. This is a really tough first round for Lerner, and he's been talking about trying to win his first U.S. Open Slam match, main draw match. Hasn't been able to do it yet. He drew, I think it was Novak last year, so really tough draw there. Now he's got Borges, and, this isn't going to be an easy one either. Head-to-head is 2-0 in favor of Lerner. We'll talk about that in a second. Tien coming in, he's 15-8 on the hard courts, 26-13 last year, 53-8 the year before. He's had a pretty good summer. Started off with a loss of Manarino in D.C. That was a head-scratcher, but then makes the semifinals of Montreal. Has trouble with that elbow and loses to Ben Shelton in straight sets. He gets to Cincinnati. Seems like he's on his last leg. Loses in 3 tough sets to Tiafoe. Borges, on the other hand, he's 13-10 on the hard court, 17-14 last year, 20-12 the year before. And he's had a pretty consistent summer as well, getting to the round of 16 in both Montreal and Cincinnati. So pretty good accomplishments there. Beating Kova, Echeverry, and Hanfmann, losing in 3 sets to Darderi. That was a really tough match for him. I was expecting him to take that one. Then goes to Cincinnati and beats Kokkinakis, Cerundolo, and Rublev before losing to Nakashima in 3 sets. And again, another match where he could have potentially squeaked that one out. but Nakashima just playing too tough of tennis. As you mentioned before, the head-to-head is 2-0, and they played twice in the past year. Once in the Paris indoors on the hard courts there. 6-2, 7-6 win for Lerner Tien. And, we talk about Lerner. He really does like playing on those indoor hard courts. He likes the faster surfaces. So it does make sense that he would be able to dominate Borges there. Then they played in Melbourne in the Australian Open. So this is interesting. This was a third round match. Now it's a first round at the US Open. Lerner was able to win 7-6, 6-4, 6-2. And I feel like Nuno Borges has improved a lot. And, Lerner obviously played extremely well at the Australian Open, getting out to, I think it was the quarterfinals, right? Losing to Alexander Zverev. So Borges has not won a set against Lerner. 2-0, 0-5 in sets. And I think he's going to be able to win one here. I think there's going to be some nerve, some tension here from Lerner Tien. One, to get his first win, but two, you're going to be in front of a huge home crowd cheering for you. He's definitely going to be the favorite going in. So I'm going to go Lerner Tien to win this one in 4 tough sets. Here's a look at Felix Auger-Aliassime's 8th of the draw, and I honestly think if Lerner's going to be able to get through Borges, he should be able to beat Vallejo, but he does have a loss to Vallejo on the clay this year, so that'll be interesting for him to get some revenge there. Then you got Menchik lurking in that round of 32, and Menchik Lerner Tien round of 32 match is insane. That is a high quality match. And then you got a round of 16 match, probably between Menchik or Lerner against Felix. I'm going to lean towards Felix getting out here. I know Lerner Tien's been playing some good tennis. I have some questions about that elbow. He always does come with it wrapped or with the sleeve. But I'm going to lean towards Felix to get out to the quarterfinals in this part of the draw. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. Here's like a Kaboli's 8th of the draw. Kaboli coming in is the overall number 5 seed. First match we're going to talk about is Taylor Fritz, the number 9 seed, taking on Darwin Blanche. No head-to-head between these two guys. But I can't wait to see this. I really hope this is going to be a night match. Maybe it'll be an Armstrong match. I think Blanche is going to really take to the crowd. He loves to get riled up and going. And we saw him play Rinky Hijikata in Winston-Salem. It was a straight set loss for him, but still a very close match there. Let's talk about Fritz first. He's 16-9 on the hard courts, 31-12 last year, 23-10 the year before. Was able to win at DC, lost to Taranti in straight sets in Montreal. Taranti playing some amazing tennis this summer, and then lost in 3 sets to Nakashima in Cincinnati. Remember, that was a really interesting match because we know Nakashima felt like he was on his last leg, but Fritz not able to get that match done. Blanche, on the other hand, he's 7-13 on the hard courts, 31-14 last year, 16-10 the year before. And he is on a 7-match losing streak dating back to early July. So we got to keep an eye on that. This guy hasn't won a match since early July. Is he going to be able to beat Taylor Fritz, one of the best Americans in the world? Probably not. Guys, one thing that I will say, and I can't remember if I talked about it after the Hijikata Blanche match, was I really do feel like Darwin Blanche has a ton of power. He's got a big game. It just feels like he doesn't really know when to hit the right shots. I felt like a lot of that match against Hijikata, he kind of set up the point and then just wasn't really able to finish it. Was kind of rolling some approach shots in and then getting passed by Rinky, and I just think there's a lot of decision making there, and he'll get better at that as he gets older. Only 18 years old right now. I feel like we've seen Darwin Blanche on tour for a few years now, but only 18 right now. This is a great match for him to maybe introduce himself. I don't think he's going to win it, but it's a great match if he can take a set, kind of introduce himself to the American crowd who might not be so familiar with the name Darwin Blanche. But I'm going to go with Taylor Fritz. I think he wins this one in straights. Next match is Carabelli taking on Struff. No head-to-head between these two guys. There seems to be a lot of matches that we don't have head-to-heads against, which is going to be interesting. Carvelli coming in, he's 3-8 on the hard courts, 5-9 last year, 6-5 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Ashargui in the Cancun Challenger, 6-2-5-0, retired. So we got to keep an eye on that. That's a little bit concerning. Remember, he did have that retirement loss at Wimbledon. I think it was an ankle or a knee injury, something that was bugging him there. Struff, on the other hand, he's 5-10 on the hard courts, 7-11 last year, 4-8 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Tabilo in Cincinnati. He was able to beat Burruchaga in 3 sets. Lost to Tabilo. Hasn't had the greatest of summer hard court seasons. Lost to Mickelson in 3 sets. And guys, we always talk about Struff, and he comes and goes with his serve. If he's serving extremely well, he's going to be so difficult to beat. He's able to use a surplus one. He's able to redirect his shots. He's able to take offense easier. But if his serve starts to dip a little bit, then we see that game start to decline as he has to play longer points on his serve to hold. Kind of finds his back up against the wall in a lot of his service games. So keep your eye on that there for the serving. But I just think Carvelli, he's not a natural hard courter, loves the clay. That second serve for Carvelli just really sits up, and Struff should be able to take full advantage of that and put a lot of pressure on Carvelli in his service games. So I got to go with Struff to advance. I think he does it in 4. Next match is Francisco Cerundolo taking on Filip Misolic. Head-to-head is 2-0 in favor of Cerundolo. We'll talk about that in a second. Cerundolo coming in, he's 8-7 on the hard courts, 12-8 last year, 5-10 the year before. Definitely hasn't had the best of summer seasons on the hard courts. Beats Tristan Boyer by retirement. That's his only win this summer. Loses to Arthur Gia in 3 sets in Los Cabos, then loses to Mickelson in straights, and then Borges in straights in Cincinnati. Misolic is coming in, he's 1-4 on the hard courts, 8-7 last year, 1-4 the year before. And he's riding a 4-match losing streak dating back to, oh wow, so it looks like he hasn't played in a while. Because this losing streak was dating back to January, so that's definitely he must have been out for an injury. So we definitely got to keep an eye on that. Retired against Lando Luthé in the Lille Challenger back in February, so I assume that must be an injury that's been plaguing him. Now he's going to give it a go here, and Cerundolo's not a guy that you want to kind of try that out against. I think Cerundolo's going to be able to take care of business here. However, guys, we know Cerundolo. We know he can give you sets. Do I think Misolic can get a set? I don't think so, just because this is his first match back. Cerundolo should be able to bully him around with the forehand. Hopefully not too many unforced errors from Francisco Cerundolo, but I'm going to go Cerundolo to advance here. I think he does it in 3. Next match is Zheng and Trunzoliti. No head-to-head between these two guys. I'm going to circle this match and kind of say it's a must-win for Jerry Zheng. He's coming in 5-7 on the hard courts, 6-8 last year, 25-10 the year before, and we know he's been faced with injuries. I think it was the left leg. He's on a 2-match losing streak. His summer hasn't been the greatest. Loses to Nishikori in DC in 3 sets. Beats Vallejo. Beats Rublev in 3 in Montreal. Nice win there. Loses to Darderi in 3. And loses to Sonego in straights in Cincinnati. Trunzoliti, on the other hand, he's 5-5 on the hard courts, 4-5 last year, 12-11 the year before. He lost to Magia in Montreal in the qualifiers. Was able to qualify for Cincinnati, beating Offner and Nishikori, and then beats Majetovic, who has been struggling a little bit, and loses to Medvedev in straights. No head-to-head between these two guys. I'm really interested. I think Zheng has the firepower. He's got those big shots. We remember when he beat Rublev, Rublev was just scratching his head at how the heck is this guy getting all these shots in, like right in the corner. So he has the ability to do that. I think when you challenge the movement of Trunzoliti, that's where you're going to succeed. However, Trunzoliti does a great job of taking advantage of coming into net. He can rush you a little bit. He can put some pressure on you. So definitely look out for that. He's got good feel at the net as well, so he can hit some drop volleys, move you up and back. I'm taking Zheng here, guys. I think he's going to take this one in 5. Match is Komosana taking on Fabio Coboli. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Coboli. They played earlier this year. Komosana coming in, he's 3-8 on the hard courts, 9-9 last year, 8-5 the year before. Hasn't had the greatest of hard court seasons here. Starting it out in Cincinnati, losing to Nishikori, then going to Cancun Challenger, losing to Llamas Ruiz, then beating Yabing Wu and Winston-Salem, and then losing in straight sets to Altmaier. I remember I was at the U.S. Open last year, and I remember Komosana having this very tough match. I want to say it was against Cam Norrie. Yes, it was a tough 4-set loss to Cam Norrie. Was able to beat Mickelson, though, in the first round, so that kind of shows you maybe he can turn it on here at the U.S. Open. Coboli, on the other hand, he's 13-7 on the hard courts, 9-13 last year, 26-13 the year before that, and he's coming off a loss to Arthur Fils in the semifinals of Cincinnati. Was able to beat Kekmanovic, blocks, Jodar, Tommy Paul, losing to Arthur Fils in straights. Had that head-scratching loss to Hanfmann in Montreal in straight sets. And we know Coboli, he's been having a great year. Finals of the French Open, quarterfinals of Wimbledon. Losing in straight sets to Fery, a little bit disappointing for him for sure. Has to figure that out. Looking at the head-to-head here, guys, they did play in Monte Carlo. It was a 3-set win for Coboli, 7-5, 2-6, 6-3. And let's keep in mind, for both those guys, I would say that's their favorite surface. I think Komosana takes a little bit of a step down, where Coboli does take a step down, but maybe not as much as Komosana does going onto the hard courts. Coboli's got that big forehand, too, that he can really dictate with. Guys, I think if Coboli can play this match right, he should be able to take it in straights. He's got to just be steady. Komosana likes to make a lot of errors. He's got that big forehand. Sure, he's going to whip a few past you, but there's no reason for you to be making any type of unforced errors when the guy across the net is going to be making twice as many as you. So I'm going to take Coboli to advance here. I think he does it in 3. And this is a pretty interesting eighth of the draw. I mean, you got potentially Bellucci taking on Taylor Fritz in the second round, then Fritz and Cerundolo in the round of 32, and a round of 16 match between Fritz and Coboli, the 5 seed against the 9 seed. Who's going to win that one? I mean, I gotta lean towards Coboli, guys. He's the one that's shown us better results in the Grand Slams this year. So I'm gonna go with Coboli to get out of this quarter. Let me know or get out of this eighth of the draw, make the quarterfinals. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. Here's a look at Medvedev's eighth of the draw. Medvedev coming in as the overall number 7 seed of this tournament. First match we're going to talk about is Sebastian Gorsi taking on Rafael Collignon. No head-to-head between these two guys. Gorsi coming in, he's 10-10 on the hard courts, 1-1 last year, 9-4 the year before. He's coming off a first-round loss to Cruz Hewitt in the Winston-Salem Open. Did get in as a lucky loser. He lost in the qualifiers to Balshaw in 3 sets. And Gorsi's been mostly on the challenger level. Played for, I believe it was Texas. So this guy's solid college player, but now he's going to have to step up against a guy like Collignon, who can absolutely rope the ball. Collignon coming in, he's 8-9 on the hard courts, 4-4 last year, 5-3 the year before, and he's on a 5-match losing streak dating back to mid-July, where he was able to make the finals of Gstaad. Hasn't had a great hard court season just yet, losing to Popperin in straights, Novoni in straights, Hijikata in 3, and this was a really tough 3-setter there for Collignon. It felt like he was kind of in control that first set, wins at 6-3, and Hijikata just able to really wrestle that match away from him. Guys, let's not forget that Collignon was the one that kind of announced himself here in the U.S. Open last year, beating Casper Ruud in 5 sets. He then went on to lose to Lehechka in straight sets in the 3rd round, but I'm hoping that Collignon is going to be able to find a little bit of a rhythm and comfort here on the New York courts again. This is a must-win for him. You know, you cannot be losing to a guy like Sebastian Gorsi. Could this potentially be a tricky match for Collignon? Yes. I mean, we just watched him commit so many unforced errors against Hijikata to give him the match there. But I got to go with Collignon. He's got the experience. He's played in this tournament before and had some good success. So I'm going Collignon. I think he advances in 4. Next match is Minaur taking on Terence Ottman. No head-to-head between these two guys. We got Minaur coming in. He's 4-4 on the hard courts, 15-11 last year, 5-9 the year before. He gave Alexander Blocks a walkover in Montreal. So again, another injury-ridden player. We gotta be very careful picking these types of guys. Was able to be Hijikata prior to that second round walkover from Blocks, or 2 blocks. Altmaier, on the other hand, he's 12-11 on the hard courts, 28-17 last year, 30-20 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Zverev in 2 tough breakers, and I can't remember. I think he had the knee wrapped. Terence Altmaier did. His movement was a little bit tough there in some points of the match because he likes to get around and hit that inside out forehand. He also made the third round of Montreal, losing to Menchik there. Was able to beat Draper and Khachanov in Montreal, and Fucsovics and Echeverry in Cincinnati. Beat Tiafoe in DC, and remember that I think that was his 4th match against Tiafoe this year, so was able to have some success against him there. Guys, I'm leaning towards Terence Altmaier. I like the fact that he plays extremely aggressive. I like the lefty style that he has. He can hit it out to the backhand. Minaur's the type of guy that's going to grind out points. He's going to really force you to win this match, and that's the one thing that scares me a little bit, because we watched Terence Altmaier against Kokkinakis, and it just really came down to nerves there. He had that match, had an overhead. I don't think it was an overhead match point, but maybe an overhead to hold serve, and just whiffs on it. There were so many tough matches or tough points for him in that match against Kokkinakis, but I do attribute some of that to the fact that he was playing at the French Open, home crowd. I think really wanted to impress the home crowd, just wasn't able to do it. So I'm curious if maybe he gets stuck in the bright lights here at the U.S. Open. But I'm sticking with Terence Altmaier. Minaur's been on and off with injuries. I'm a little bit concerned with him there. So give me Altmaier to advance. I think he does it in 4. Next match is Rinderknecht taking on Shimabukuro. No head-to-head between these two guys here. Let's talk about Rinderknecht first. He's 5-8 on the hard courts, 14-15 last year, 16-13 the year before. Hasn't had the greatest of summer seasons, beating Kecmanovic in 3 sets in Montreal. Beating Tiafoe by retirement. Remember, Tiafoe had that hand procedure, had to retire there. Losing a tough 3-setter to Nakashima. Goes to Cincinnati, loses a tough 3-setter to Juan Manuel Cerundolo. Shimabukuro, on the other hand, he's 19-16 on the hard courts, 29-19 last year, 21-17 the year before. He hasn't been able to make it out of the first round of a tournament in the hard court season. Losing to Pacheco Mendes in the first round of Los Cabos, Cilic in the first round of Montreal, Hurkacz in the first round of Cincinnati, and Kecmanovic in the first round of the Winston-Salem Open. Shimabukuro had a pretty good grass court record, was 7-3 going into Wimbledon, but unfortunately lost to Fery in 4 sets. Guys, I think Rinderknecht is going to be able to serve himself through this match. I'm not sure how deep he's going to be able to make it into this tournament. That matchup with Altmaier in the second round potentially is going to be very tricky. But giving Rinderknecht to advance here, I think he does it in 3. Next match is Vatro taking on Kovacevic. Head-to-head here is 2-1 in favor of Kova. Let's take a look at Vatro first. He's coming in 8-9 on the hard courts, 18-9 last year, 19-3 the year before, and he hasn't really done anything since that Monte Carlo run to the semifinals where he lost to Carlos Alcaraz. Vatro is currently riding a 4-match losing streak dating back to the middle of July, where he lost to Collignon, then goes to Kitzbühel, loses to Halys, goes to Montreal, loses to Navoni in 3, loses to Vallejo in Cincinnati. Kovacevic, on the other hand, he's 10-11 on the hard courts, 13-14 last year, 20-17 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Arthur Fery in the quarterfinals of the Winston-Salem Open. A little bit of a tough match there, and we've seen a little bit of regression here from Kovacevic. I thought he looked good in Acapulco earlier this year, but now we've seen a straight set loss to Nori in Los Cabos. 3-set loss to Borges in Montreal. Straight set loss to Nakashima. Was able to beat Khachanov. And then makes it out to the quarterfinals, beating Balshot, Van Asche, and Tsitsipas, losing in 3 to Fery. Head-to-head here, guys, as we mentioned, First meeting went to Kovacevic on the hard court. That was our only meeting on the hard courts. It was a 6-7, 6-0, 6-3 win for Kova. Then Kova was able to win in Madrid 6-4, 6-2, and then Vatro able to win 7-5, 7-6 in the Provence Challenger. The last two matches both being on the clay. This is going to be a really tricky match. I'm not really sure what to expect from Vatro, but we haven't seen the best of him. That loss in straights to Vallejo is very concerning. But then you have, plays pretty good on the clay, shows up in Gstaad, beats Hanfmann in 3, loses to Collignon. Guys, I think Kovacevic is going to be able to win this. He's got to focus, though, when he gets out there. He can't get frustrated. He can't make a ton of unforced errors. But we just watched him beat Tsitsipas. We watched him beat Van Asche. This is going to be my first upset that I'm going to call. And we didn't see Vatro at Wimbledon. But I remember watching him in the first round of the French Open, and he was kind of barely hanging on. I felt like he played Thomas Farrell, a wild card Frenchman. I really felt like if he lost that fourth set, he was probably going to lose that match. Now he's going to play an actual guy that's a regular on the tour. So I'm going with Kova. I think he's going to pull this upset off. Give me Kova in 5. Just as we have Micek on Medjedovic. Head-to-head is 2-1 in favor of Medjedovic. This is just two guys that have really been struggling. So one of them is going to get a win here, which is definitely going to help their the confidence level. Micek coming in, he's 8-12 on the hard courts, 19-6 last year, 26-6 the year before. He's coming off a 4-match losing streak. Was able to beat Tommy Paul in DC, but that was his only win that he got this summer on the hard courts. Loses to Fritz in straights, Monfils in straights, Christopher O'Connell in straights, and Bonzi in straights. Medjedovic on the other hand, he's 4-4 on the hard courts, 6-6 last year, 9-6 the year before. He's also on a 4-match losing streak. Was able to beat Rinderknecht in Queen's Club, then lost to Humbert in 3 tough sets. Loses to Offner in 5 in Wimbledon. Loses to Cerundolo in Montreal and Trunzoliti in Cincinnati. Guys, I have no idea where to go here. I want to say Micek, but watching that Micek-Bonzi match, it's so tough because Micek has to rely on the unforced errors of Medjedovic. He needs errors from Medjedovic to really survive. It's really tough for him to create points and win so many of those. Let's talk about this head-to-head here. They first met in 2022. Medjedovic got the win on the hard courts in a challenger 6-4, 6-2. Then Micek got a little bit of revenge later on in that same year, 7-6, 6-4 on the hard courts. And then Medjedovic beat Micek in the French Open 6-3, 6-3, 7-6. And we remember Medjedovic, that was last year for Medjedovic, but he had a great clay year this year, 14-4. This is probably the hardest match I've had to pick so far. And it's not because both guys are playing well. It's because I've watched both guys give away matches. I'm gonna go. Let me look at. Sorry guys, I'm delaying this. Let me look at the records here at the U.S. Open. Micek sitting at 13-8. Farthest he's made it is the third round. Had to retire against Reedy. First round loss in 2022 to Tabilo. First round to Rusevori. Let's take a look at Medjedovic and what he's done. I know Medjedovic doesn't really perform that well in these slams. 5-set loss to Altmaier. 5-set loss to Marozsan. This is screaming 5-setter for me, guys. So I'm gonna go with Micek. We're splitting hairs here, but I'm gonna go with Micek to get this one done. I can't believe I'm picking him, but give me Micek to advance in 5. Next match, we have Martin Dam taking on Francis Tiafoe head-to-head. Here's 1-0 in favor of Tiafoe. They played in the second round of the U.S. Open last year. And remember, this was a very, very tough match for Tiafoe to get through, but he was able to do it. Martin Dam coming in, he's 10-9 on the hard courts, 36-13 last year, 7-7 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Marozsan in 3 sets, was able to beat Medvedev and Shelby to get to the third round in the Winston-Salem Open. Didn't really do much this year, this summer on the hard courts. A first round loss to Shelton in 3, a straight set loss to Tsitsipas, and then a straight set loss to Sakkarides in Cincinnati. Tiafoe, on the other hand, he's 20-9 on the hard courts, 13-13 last year, 21-13 the year before. He's coming off a 3-set loss to Arthur Fils in the finals of Cincinnati. What a run he had, beating Sonego, beating Tien, beating Auger-Aliassime, beating Musetti and Nakashima, and then a tough 3-set match against Fils. Did lose to Rinderknecht in Montreal by retirement. Remember, he had that hand procedure. Just was really having trouble holding the racket. I thought it might be a little bit worse, going in, but it seems like he's playing just fine now. Guys, I think this is going to be another 4-setter. I think Tiafoe is going to be able to prevail, but I would not touch this match at all. I could see Martin Dam winning it, getting some revenge. I thought he played extremely well at the Winston-Salem Open this year. Maybe he can carry some of that momentum in, but I'm going with Tiafoe. I think he gets this one done in 4. Here's look at Medvedev's 8th of the draw. And guys, I'm going to call right now, this is the 8th of the draw that we're going to get a crazy finalist from. Because I could see Tiafoe losing to Dam. I can see Vacaro losing to Kovacevic. I can see Medvedev losing to a qualifier. I can see him losing to a Collignon. And I don't know what kind of Medvedev we're going to get there. And then Rinderknecht, I can see losing to Terence Ottman. So we might get an unseeded quarterfinalist out of this part of the draw. But let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. Here's a look at Djokovic's 8th of the draw. Djokovic coming in as the overall number 4 seed. First match we're going to talk about is the number 16 seeded Nakashima taking on Diaz. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Nakashima. And what a summer Brandon Nakashima has been having. He's 21-9 on the hard courts this year, 19-14 last year, 24-12 the year before. That 24 mark is the most wins he's gotten on in a hard court season. I think he's going to surpass that this year. Nakashima able to get to the semifinals of DC, losing to Taylor Fritz, the finals of Montreal, losing to Ben Shelton, and the semifinals of Cincinnati, losing to Francis Tiafoe. He's going to be a tough out here. Diaz, on the other hand, he's 16-8 on the hard courts, 3-9 last year, 5-9 the year before. He had to retire against Juan Cerundolo. I can't remember what that injury was. Was able to beat Hugo Grenier in 2 tough sets in the first round. And he made it out to the finals of the Cancun Challenger, losing to Hurkacz in 3 sets. And maybe that retirement was just a little bit of fatigue there. Wants to get ready for that U.S. Open. Guys, we know what Diaz is capable of. He's an amazing counterpuncher. He can really kind of extend some of these points against Nakashima, make him think about it. But we've just seen so many good things from Nakashima. And I love, we talk about the wrinkles in his game that Ferreira has added his new coach. And one of those wrinkles is being able to come to net and take advantage of some of these counter-punching styles, so he doesn't have to play longer points. He's taking the ball early. He's coming in and using the volley, rushing these guys, forcing them to hit tough passing shots. So the only way I can look here is Nakashima. I think he's going to get this one done in straights. Next match is Morita against Fucsovics. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Fucsovics. We'll talk about that one in a second. Morita coming in, he's 18-7 on the hard courts, 15-5 last year, 17-9 the year before. He's coming off a straight set loss to Taylor Fritz in the third round of Cincinnati. He was able to beat Cilic and Bergs to get there. Also made the quarterfinals of Montreal, which was a very impressive run for him, beating Draxel, Humbert, Mickelson, and Griesbourg, losing to Lerner Tien in straights, and was a little bit overwhelmed there in that quarterfinal appearance. Fucsovics on the other hand, he's 6-8 on the hard courts this year, 18-6 last year, 6-8 the year before. And he's on a 3-match losing streak dating back to the first week of July in Wimbledon. Lost to Kokkinakis, then lost to Moutet in straights, and had to retire against Terence Altmaier. Pulled out of the Winston-Salem Open, where he won the title last year. Wasn't able to defend the title, so we got to keep an eye on the health of Fucsovics here going into this match. Looking at the head-to-head is 1-0 in favor of Fucsovics. They played in 2022 in Madrid on the clay. It was a 6-4, 6-3 win for Fucsovics. Guys, there's no other way I can look but Merida. I think he's playing a much better tennis. You look at, yes, in 2022, Fucsovics got the win, but Merida was like 17 years old back then. Now he's 21, playing the best tennis of his life. I think he's played much better tennis on the hard courts this season. So give me Merida to win this one in, I'll say, straights. So many tough matches here. We got Rublev taking on Marin Cilic head-to-head. Here's 4-3 in favor of Rublev. And let's keep in mind, this was a quarterfinal of the French Open a few years ago. So, that shows you, what good quality we have now here. Rublev coming in, he's 11-8 on the hard court, 16-13 last year, 26-11 the year before. His hard court season, he was 1-2, losing to Jerry Zheng in 3 sets in Montreal, beating Carreno Busta in straights, and then losing to Borges in Cincinnati. And that was a little bit of a red flag there because Rublev really owned Borges going into that match, but loses in straights. We got to keep an eye on him there. Just that mentality of Rublev just seems to always pull him down. Cilic, on the other hand, he's 6-7 on the hard courts, 3-6 last year, 8-6 the year before. And he was also 1-2, beating Shibobukuro in straights, losing to Tiafoe in 3, and then Merida in 3 in Cincinnati. As you mentioned, the head-to-head is 4-3 in favor of Rublev. However, Cilic has won the last 2 matches, but they were back in 2022. Cilic was able to win in the French Open quarterfinals over Rublev, 7-6 in the 5th set there, and then winning in the Australian Open 3rd round, 6-3 in the 4th set there. Guys, I'm going with Rublev, even though Cilic holds that Grand Slam record over him. But I'm taking Rublev here. Cilic, I think, if you're able to neutralize the serve +1, if you're able to get the serve back, make him play out some of these longer points. He does struggle a little bit with the movement. He plays extremely well at the U.S. Open, though. We've seen him have some very good matches even later on in his career. But I got to go with Rublev to advance here. I think he's going to do it in 4. Next match, we have Etcheverry taking on Kokkinakis. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Etcheverry. They played earlier this year, and it was a really tough match. Etcheverry coming in, he's 5-8 on the hard courts, 10-10 last year, 7-10 the year before. He's on a 3-match losing streak dating back to late July, where he was able to beat Buse, but then loses to Bublik in straight sets in Kitzbühel, Nakashima in straights in D.C., Borges in straights in Montreal, and Terence Altmaier in straights in Cincinnati. Kokkinakis, on the other hand, he's 8-8 on the hard courts, 12-10 last year, 13-9 the year before. And he's had a kind of the same mediocre 2-3 season on the summer hard courts, beating Galerno in straights in Montreal, then losing to Lehechka in straights, lost to Halys in straights in Cincinnati, beats Onklin in straights, and then loses to Harris in straights. As you mentioned before, the head-to-head was a really tightly contested match, a 4-6, 7-6, 7-6 win in the semifinals for Etcheverry to get to the finals of the Rio Open. Remember, he was able to win that tournament. Guys, I'm going to go with Kokkinakis. I feel like this is a little bit shaky because we haven't really seen much from Kokkinakis. He withdrew from the Winston-Salem Open, but I got my fingers crossed that that's only just to prepare for this U.S. Open and potentially playing some of these longer matches. But I like the way Kokkinakis hits. He's a little bit off-putting when you play him. Takes the ball very flat, can redirect it very easily, can hit behind you. So give me Kocheva to advance here. I think he's going to do it in 5. Next match is Berrettini taking on Stan, and this is a rematch of the first round of Wimbledon. Now they get a first round at the U.S. Open. I mean, maybe the U.S. Open people saw that, hey, they played such a classic first round match at Wimbledon. Let's do it again. Let's run it back here and have them play again at the U.S. Open. Berrettini coming in, he's 4-4 on the hard courts, 10-9 last year, 7-6 the year before. He was 1-2 this summer, losing to Novoni in 3 sets, beating Droguet in 3, and then losing to Lehechka in 3. Stan, on the other hand, he's 5-7 on the hard court, 7-4 last year, 1-5 the year before. Let's keep in mind Stan has won this title before, and he is 1-1 on the hard courts. Able to beat Serchina in the Cancun Challenger, and then losing to Safiullin in straights. Their match, as we talked about at Wimbledon, was a 6-7, 7-6, 7-6, 7-6. But that second set breaker was insane. It was 18-16. And I think we're going to get more of the same here, guys. I think this is going to be a 5-set match. I think Berrettini's got to be okay to lock in for a little bit of a longer match. I'm not sure how Stan's going to be going deep into the 5th set there, especially if they play, with the, if they play a few more breakers the way that they did at Wimbledon. So I'm going to go Berrettini to win this one. I think we get a classic match here. Give me Berrettini in 5. This match we have Djokovic taking on Novoni. No head-to-head between these two guys. This will be their first meeting. Let's talk about Djokovic first. Coming in, he's 7-3 on the hard courts, 21-7 last year, 15-5 the year before. Has never had a losing season on the hard courts. Novoni, on the other hand, he's 9-8 on the hard courts this year, 5-12 last year, 2-7 the year before, and he hadn't had a winning season. This is his first winning season since 2020 when he was 4-2. Novoni's coming off a loss in the second round to Duckworth at the Winston-Salem Open. A little bit disappointing there for him. His hard court season wasn't too bad. Was able to beat Berrettini in 3 sets, Vachero in 3, losing to Feast in straights. Then is able to beat Collignon in straights and loses to Blocks in Cincinnati. Djokovic, on the other hand, played 1 match in Cincinnati and lost to Taranti. A little bit concerning there. Taranti played extremely well. He was grooved into that match, and Djokovic just a little bit rusty. Guys, I could potentially see this being a little bit of an annoying match for Novak because you got Novoni. He doesn't put a lot of pace on the ball, but we have seen Novoni when he plays up to these guys, he tends to try to overhit, maybe try to hit the ball a little bit bigger just to keep them on edge. And I just don't think that's his game. So he kind of steps away from his game when he does play a higher level. I think we're going to see a little bit of that here against Djokovic. So I'm going to go Novak to advance. I think he does it in straights. This match we have Djokovic taking on Novoni. No head-to-head between these two guys. This will be their first meeting. Let's talk about Djokovic first. Coming in, he's 7-3 on the hard courts, 21-7 last year, 15-5 the year before. Has never had a losing season on the hard courts. Novoni, on the other hand, he's 9-8 on the hard courts this year, 5-12 last year, 2-7 the year before, and he hadn't had a winning season. This is his first winning season since 2020 when he was 4-2. Novoni's coming off a loss in the second round to Duckworth at the Winston-Salem Open. A little bit disappointing there for him. His hard court season wasn't too bad. Was able to beat Berrettini in 3 sets, Vachero in 3, losing to Feast in straights. Then is able to beat Collignon in straights and loses to Blocks in Cincinnati. Djokovic, on the other hand, played 1 match in Cincinnati and lost to Taranti. A little bit concerning there. Taranti played extremely well. He was grooved into that match, and Djokovic just a little bit rusty. Guys, I could potentially see this being a little bit of an annoying match for Novak because you got Navoni. He doesn't put a lot of pace on the ball, but we have seen Navoni when he plays up to these guys, he tends to try to overhit, maybe try to hit the ball a little bit bigger just to keep them on edge. And I just don't think that's his game. So he kind of steps away from his game when he does play a higher level. I think we're going to see a little bit of that here against Djokovic. So I'm going to go Novak to advance. I think he does it in straights. Here's a look at Shelton's eighth of the draw. First match we're going to talk about is Shelton against Talon Griekspoor. Shelton coming in as the overall number 8 seed. No head-to-head between these two guys. Shelton's 14-6 on the hard courts this year, 23-9 last year, 22-13 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Fery in the second round of Cincinnati, but let's keep in mind he was coming off a very nice defense of his title in the Canadian Open, beating Brooksby, Bergs, Fonseca, Menchik, Tien, and Nakashima in the finals. Just a really nice tournament for him. Not dropping a set, especially after that disappointing loss in the quarterfinals of DC, losing to Tabilo. Griekspoor on the other hand, 7-6 on the hard courts, 10-11 last year, 10-11 the year before. He's coming off a lost to Merida in Montreal. Didn't play Cincinnati. I'm not really sure why. He also lost to Tabilo in 3 sets in DC. And he played pretty well in that match. I remember seeing them kind of go like blow for blow with each other. Griekspoor was able to beat Sonego, Zverev, and Arnaldi, getting to the round of 16 in Montreal. Guys, there's no other way I can look but Shelton. I mean, I think he's going to make a deep run in this tournament. This is a little bit of a trickier match. I mean, we know Griekspoor, he's an extremely lethal player. Very tough if he's on. This could be a really tricky match for Ben. Let's keep in mind that Ben had a second round loss to Colin Yon in the French Open, a first round loss to Virtanen. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Griekspoor could pull a potential upset. But I got to go with Ben Shelton. I think he gets this one done in 3. Next match is Jumer against Hurkacz. Head-to-head here is 1-0 in favor of Jumer. We'll talk about that in a second. Jumer coming in, he's 3-8 on the hard courts, 9-11 last year, 11-13 the year before. He played the Grodzki Mazowiecki Challenger, losing to Erhard, in straights. Hurkacz on the other hand, he's 12-8 on the hard courts, 4-5 last year, 17-10 the year before. He's coming off a win in the Cancun Challenger, and I really like that. Going out there, maybe didn't play as well as he wanted in Montreal and Cincinnati. He ended up going 3-2, beating Marcos Giron, beating Tabilo in Montreal. That's a good win for him. Losing Bodic in the third round, and then beating Shimabukuro in the first round of Cincy, and then losing to Tommy Paul. Goes to the Cancun Challenger, wins it. I think that's got to give him a lot of confidence going into the match. They did play back in 2017 in Davis Cup. It was on an indoor hard court, and it was a 7-6, 7-5, 7-5 win for Jumer. So we know Jumer. He likes to grind out some of these tougher matches. He's the type of guy that, can really push you a little bit, especially if he's motivated to win. However, I really think that if Hurkacz is on, if he's extremely comfortable with the surface and his serve, he's going to be able to take full advantage. We know he loves the serve +1. He's able to get a lot of free points off that big serve. So I got to take Hurkacz here. I think the courts are much better suited to him than they are Jumer. So give me Hurkacz to advance. I think he does it in 3. Next match is Kekmanovic taking on Shapovalov, and head-to-head here is 6-0 in favor of Shapo. That's a pretty lopsided one, especially where it feels like these guys are pretty well matched. Kekmanovic coming in, he's 9-11 on the hard courts, 15-14 last year, 10-15 the year before. He's coming off a loss of Marozsan in Winston-Salem in straight sets. Was able to beat Shimabukuro on the first round there. Hasn't really had the best of seasons. Wins 1 round, loses in the second round. Beats Michael Zheng in 3 sets in Montreal, then loses to Rainer Kanesh in 3. Beats Carabelli in straight sets, then loses to Capoli in 3. And then beats Shimabukuro in straights and loses to Marozsan in straights. Shapo, on the other hand, he's 8-8 on the hard courts, 14-11 last year, 9-10 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Jodar in 3 sets. And remember, this was the match where he really pushed Jodar to the absolute limit. Was up a break. I think it was 5-2. Jodar had that timeout for the shoelace tying. And it really just killed Shapo's momentum. I think a lot of errors off that Shapo racket. He wasn't really able to take it. And that seems to be kind of the problem with him. Let's take a look at that head-to-head here. They played last year in Dallas on the indoor hard courts. It was a 6-3, 6-7, 6-3 win for Shapo. That's what I think we're going to be looking at here. I think this is going to be a tough 4 or 5 setter, but I think Shapo's going to be able to prevail. So give me Shapo to advance in 4. As is Norrie taking on Van Asche. Head-to-head here is 3-1 in favor of Norrie. All the readings have been on hard courts. Let's talk about Van Asche first. He's 12-8 on the hard court, 7-4 last year, 15-15 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Kovacevic in straight sets. A little bit disappointing there for Van Asche. So he came out to Montreal, lost in 3 sets, 7-6 in the third to Droguet. Then qualifies for Cincinnati, loses to Hanfmann in straights. Gets into the Quebec Challenger, beats Sakamoto, Bonzi, Gaston, and Saccarides to win that title, and then loses in the second round to Kovacevic. Let's keep in mind Bonzi's still alive. He's in the semifinals there. That's Van Asche has that ability. He has that level. Norrie, on the other hand, he's 14-9 on the hard courts, 11-15 last year, 7-4 the year before, and he's had a pretty good season, pretty good summer season, which has kind of been a little bit under the radar in my opinion. A semifinal in Los Cabos, beating Kovacevic, Duckworth, Tomic, losing to Shapo there, and then a round of 16 match, beating Carbelli, Buse, Minaur, and losing to Fees there in straights. And then in Cincinnati, he was able to beat Prismic in 3 and lost to Zverev in 3 tough ones. So I like the way that Norrie's playing. I think he's always the type of guy that can kind of dig out some of these matches. He does tend to make some matches more complicated than they should be for him. But I'm going with Norrie to advance here. We just haven't seen a lot of great things from Van Asche, even though he has a challenger title. But we haven't seen much from him on the tour. He was able to win Estoril, but then goes on this 3-match losing streak in the first rounds of ATP Tour events. So I'm going to go Norrie to advance. I think he does it in 5. Matches Lehecka taking on Carreño Busta. Head-to-head here is 1-1 between these two guys. We'll talk about that in a second. Lehecka coming in, he's 13-9 on the hard courts, 24-10 last year, 20-10 the year before. His summer season hasn't been the greatest. We've expected a little bit more from him, especially a guy that was able to make the finals of Miami. Lehecka lost in 3 sets to Coleman Wong in Los Cabos. Then he goes to Montreal, beats Kopcheva and blocks before losing to Jodar. Then he beats Berrettini in 3 and loses to Feast in 3 sets in Cincinnati. Carreño Busta, on the other hand, he's 8-8 on the hard courts, 25-10 last year, 7-6 the year before. And he is 1-3 on the hard courts here. Had to retire against Vallejo. Really didn't look great there, so we got to keep an eye out for the health of Carreño Busta. Lost to Royer in the Montreal first round. Beats Mahatch, loses to Rublev in Cincinnati, then loses to Vallejo in Winston-Salem. As we mentioned before, it's head-to-head is split here. Lehecka getting the first meeting in Dubai, 7-6, 6-4. And then Carreño Busta getting some revenge at the French Open, a straight set win over Lehecka. Impressive stuff there from Carreño Busta. Guys, this is the second time they met in the first round of a slam. I think Lehecka is going to be looking for so much revenge here. He's going to come in hyper-focused. Carreño Busta really stole that slam from Lehecka. Not like the whole thing, but at least a good run from Lehecka. So I'm going to go with Lehecka to advance here. I think he does it in straights. Next match is Tsitsipas taking on Arthur Fils head-to-head. Here is 5-0 in favor of Fils. We'll talk about that in a second because they had a very lopsided match in Miami. Tsitsipas coming in, he's 12-10 on the hard courts, 12-10 last year, 13-11 the year before. He's coming off a loss to Kovacevic in Winston-Salem. And remember, we talked about this match. I cannot believe it was a 7-1 breaker for Kova. Tsitsipas able to win one round in Montreal and then lose to Fonseca, beats Royer in Cincinnati, loses to Felix Auger-Aliassime, beats Brooksby in Winston-Salem, loses to Kovacevic. So back-to-back matches do seem to be a bit of a problem for him. Fils, on the other hand, he's 20-5 on the hard courts, 10-6 last year, 15-9 the year before, and he was able to win the Cincinnati title, 6-0 in the third there against Tiafoe, a Tiafoe that was playing very well. Fils was able to beat Hanfmann, Lehechka, Minaur, Taranti, Caboli, and Tiafoe on his way to the title there. As you mentioned before, it's 5-0 in favor of Fils, which I didn't realize it was this lopsided, but they played in Miami. It was a 6-0, 6-1 win for Fils, and I think that's what we're going to expect from Fils here. I think he's going to be able to roll Tsitsipas. When Tsitsipas can't get his game going, when he doesn't have that offensive first strike, he really can't do much. So I'm going with Arthur Fils to advance here. I think he does it in straights. Let's look at Shelton's 8th of the draw, and guys, Fils and Shelton in the round of 16. I mean, what are we doing? This is going to be so hard. We got Lehechka and Fils potentially in the round of 32. I mean, this is such a hard part of the draw, especially when you look at like Medvedev's 8th of the draw. I gotta go with Shelton. I love the he's gonna have the crowd with him. You know, we talked about that with a Pamplemousse, and that's gonna be he's a tough guy to beat. And we were saying how, you know, like we really felt like there aren't many players that, unless they bring their A game, that they can beat Shelton. So give me Shelton to advance out to the quarterfinals here. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. And here's a look at Alcaraz's 8th of the draw, and this is the long-awaited return of Carlos Alcaraz. We'll talk about his match in a second. He's coming in as the overall number 2 seed. First match we're going to talk about is Bublik taking on J.J. Wolf. Head-to-head here is 3-1 in favor of Wolf. That's really interesting, and you know we'll go through some of these records here, but I kind of feel like we have some things setting up for J.J. Wolf here. Bublik coming in, he's 9-4 on the hard courts, 12-11 last year, 10-11 the year before. He's coming off a loss in the Kitzbühel finals to Quinton Halys. That was on the clay, so he hasn't played a match on the hard courts this summer. This is going to be his first match. This will be a tricky one here. J.J. Wolf on the other end, he's 15-4 on the hard courts, 0-1 last year, 11-16 the year before. And, you know, he hasn't had the greatest of appearances, making it to the quarterfinals of the Bloomfield Hills Challenger, losing to Fernley, winning the Vancouver Challenger, and then playing in Cincinnati, qualifying, beating Mochizuki and Shimabukuro, two very tough players, and then he loses to Duckworth in straights. I just think, you know, right now, I'm waiting for J.J. Wolf to really click and for it to be, you know, something where he's able to compete with these top guys. He's got the serve. He's got the forehand. Let's talk about this head-to-head. First meeting was won by Wolf in Cincinnati in straight sets. Then Wolf was able to beat Bublik in the Florence Open in 3 sets. Then Wolf beats Bublik in Miami in straights. And they play in Wimbledon on the grass, and you think, oh, wow, you know, maybe JJ's going to be able to get the job done here. No. A 6-3, 7-6, 6-0 win for Bublik, a straight set win for him. Guys, I just don't have it in me to take Wolf. I'm going to go with Bublik to win this one. I really think it's going to be a tough match. So I got to go with Bublik to win. I think he's going to do it in 5. And I remember the first thing I did when I got the draw today was scroll down and look to see where Taranti was in this part of the draw. Was he playing a seed? Did he have a place where he could get out of the draw? and I really like the way his draw is shaping up here. Has a tricky one against Mannarino here. No head-to-head between these two guys. We got Taranti coming in. He's 14-8 on the hard courts, 14-7 last year, 5-4 the year before. He's coming off a quarterfinal loss to Arthur Feast in Cincinnati in straight sets. Was able to beat Choinski, Djokovic, Landaluthe, and Menchik. He also made the round of 16 in Montreal, where he beat Duncan Chan, Taylor Fritz, Popperin, and lost to Lerner Tien in straights. Mannarino, on the other hand, is sitting at 3-11 on the hard court, 16-16 last year, 9-17 the year before. And he's on a 4-match losing streak. Was able to beat Lerner Tien in DC, which was kind of a surprise, and now even more so a surprise with how well Lerner's been playing. Loses to Mickelson in straight sets, Fernley in straights, Shapo in straights, and Sonego in straights of the Winston-Salem Open. This isn't boding well, in my opinion, for Mannarino to put up any bit of a fight. I think that serve of Taranti, the forehand of Taranti, is going to be on full display tomorrow. It's going to be interesting because Mannarino's shots, they're low, so they don't allow you to really hit up on the ball. And we know Taranti, when he gets that ball right in the strike zone, he can just absolutely rope it. But I'm going with Taranti to advance. I think he does it in straights. Next match, we have Prismic taking on Shevchenko. No head-to-head between these two guys. We do have some injuries for Prismic. He had to pull out of the Winston-Salem Open, so that was a little bit concerning. We got to keep an eye on him here. He's on a 3-match losing streak dating back to about mid-July. Loses to Nori in 3 sets in Cincinnati and Galerno in straight sets in Quebec. Shevchenko is coming in. He's 10-11 on the hard courts, 11-12 last year, 8-13 the year before. Hasn't had a winning season on the hard courts since 2023, and even there he was 16-15. Shevchenko's coming off a loss to Bodog van Zandschulp in straight sets in Cincinnati, and this was a match where he was able to come in as a lucky loser after losing to O'Connell in the in the qualifiers. Very similar to Prismic, Shevchenko, not with the greatest of resumes here this summer, losing to Jacquet in the qualifiers in Montreal, losing to O'Connell in the qualifiers of Cincinnati. Now we're asking him to beat a guy like Prismic, and I just don't think that happens. The one thing that I'm really concerned about are the potential injuries of Dino Prismic, so we got to keep an eye on those. But if Prismic is able to come out and rope that forehand, he's going to be so lethal. So give me Prismic to advance in 4. Next match is Arnaldi taking on Duckworth. No head-to-head between these two guys. This is going to be a really tough match here. We got Arnaldi coming in. He's 2-6 on the hard courts, 11-14 the year before, and hasn't had the greatest of hard court seasons. He's 1-3. Losing to Musetti by retirement in Washington, D.C., beating Marijan in 3 in Montreal, and then losing to Griekspoor there in 3, and then losing to Landaluthe in 3 in Cincinnati. So a little bit of a tough road here for Arnaldi, but in my opinion, a lot of this is self-inflicted. He ends up just hitting a lot of unforced errors. That Landaluthe match, we saw way too many errors off the Arnaldi racket. Duckworth, on the other hand, he's 12-11 on the hard courts, 25-20 last year, 23-14 the year before. And he was able to beat Marijan this tournament in Winston-Salem in the quarterfinals. So he's still alive in Winston-Salem. We got to keep an eye out for that and see how much he does play. If he loses in the semis, I think we're okay with him here. But if he has to play a long semi and a long final, I think he might find himself in a little bit of trouble. Guys, I'm taking Duckworth. I just haven't been impressed at all with Arnaldi. Duckworth, at least to me, has been grinding out some wins. This Winston-Salem Open, he finds himself in the semifinals now. So I like what Duckworth's been doing. I feel like Arnaldi's just very hit or miss. It's probably going to be a long match here. But give me Duckworth to advance. I think he does it in 4. This next match is going to be a coin flip. No head-to-head between these two guys. We got Yabing Wu coming in against Adam Walton. Wu's 14-9 on the hard courts, 23-8 last year, 7-4 the year before. He was able to make it out to the second round of the Lincoln Challenger, losing to Boo. Beats Mackenzie McDonald, but loses in the final round of qualifying in Cincinnati to Fery. And then loses in straight sets to Komasana in Winston-Salem. Not a great summer for him. Walton, on the other hand, he's 29 and 19 on the hard courts, 32 and 23 the year before, 46 and 27 the year before that. He's coming off a tough 3-set loss to Buse in Winston-Salem, was able to beat de Jong. And a little bit disappointing there for Walton as he beat Buse in straight sets in Cincinnati. Guys, I'm going to go with Walton here. It wouldn't surprise me if Wu was able to win this, but I kind of like what we've seen from Walton. He's played a lot more hard court matches this year as well. So give me Walton to advance. I think he's going to get this one done in 4. Next match is Fery taking on Brooksby. Head-to-head here is 1-1 tied between the two guys. And, they just met about a couple weeks ago in Cincinnati. So I'll be interested to see if there's anything different here in this matchup. Fery coming in, he's 10 and 5 on the hard courts, 9 and 6 last year, 24 and 5 the year before. He's coming off a loss in the round of 16 to Musetti. Lost 7-5, 6-2 there, but was able to beat Bajashvili, Wu, Brooksby, Shelton, and Walton to get to that. Brooksby, on the other hand, he's 8 and 10 on the hard courts, 10 and 10 last year, didn't play the year before. And he's had a pretty good season, getting the quarterfinals of Los Cabos, losing the second round of Montreal to Ben Shelton, losing to Fery in the first round of Cincinnati, and then losing to Tsitsipas in the second round of Winston-Salem. Maybe not so great of a season of results here, but I like that quarterfinal appearance in Los Cabos. Let's talk about those head-to-heads here, guys. They played first match was at the French Open in 2025. It was a 4-set win for Brooksby. That's a really impressive win there for Brooksby. And then there was a match in Cincinnati this year. Is a 6-3, 6-2 win for Fery. And this was a match that I kind of thought Brooksby would get out and play Ben again, but Fery able to get out of the first round there and beat Shelton in the second round. Guys, I'm gonna stick with Fery here. I just love his spirit and his will to win. I feel like he does such a great job fighting, even when maybe the body is just telling you, screaming to take a break. Fery continues to push through here, so I really like what we're getting from him there, and I think it's gonna take a very strong effort from Brooksby to be a guy like Fery. If Brooksby comes out and he's connecting with a lot of his shots and he's frustrating Fery, then yeah, I think he's got a chance. But I feel like those matches are now few and far between. So give me Fery to advance. I think he does it in 4. Final match is Carlos Alcaraz taking on Roman Safiullin. Head-to-head here is 1-1 between these two guys. Safiolin's been a little bit of a giant killer here. Let's talk about Alcaraz first. He's 17 and 2 on the hard courts this year, 28 and 4 last year, 22 and 5 the year before. And he gave Mahatch a walkover in Barcelona, has been suffering with a wrist injury, has been able to come back and will play at the U.S. Open. I think the crowd's going to be buzzing like crazy. I'm curious to see how Safiullin handles that pressure. There's going to be a lot going on here. Alcaraz coming back. The crowd's going to be cheering really hard for him. It's the biggest stadium, the biggest tennis stadium in the world. I'll be interested to see how Roman handles that. The first 3 or 4 games, guys, are going to tell you exactly what kind of match it's going to be. If Carlos is up 3-1, 4-1, it's going to be a straight set affair. If we see it's a little bit tight or Safiolin's up a break, then I think Carlos is going to have to really buckle in and get ready for a long match. Safiullin coming in, he's 2 and 2 on the hard courts, 9 and 12 last year, 18 and 18 the year before. He's coming off a first round loss to Grenier in Winston-Salem, 6-3 in the third there. Was able to get to the Cancun Challenger quarterfinals, losing to Hurkacz. And that's the only hard courts that he's played, so he's 2 and 2 right now. Guys, I kind of look back to the Novak match at Wimbledon where maybe you thought Safiullin could take a set. He did. and maybe we thought, could he pull the upset? Probably not. He had that tough first set breaker, though, against Novak, where if he had won that, he probably would have found himself up 2-1. And I think that might have been a little bit of a sticky situation. It probably would have ended up being Novak prevailing in 5, but still, Safiulin's right there with these guys. He was also able to beat Fonseca and Rublev going into the 4th round at Wimbledon. Let's take a look at this head-to-head here. Safiulin getting their first ever winning their first ever meeting in the Paris Masters indoor hard courts. There's a 6-3, 6-4 win for Safiulin in 2023. Carlos gets a little bit of revenge in the Olympics, where he's able to beat Safiulin 6-4, 6-2. Guys, I gotta go with Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, it's so hard picking a guy that you haven't seen play. You don't really know what to expect, but I think he's been hitting pretty well. Played the mixed doubles, so he's got a little bit of match play under his belt. I'm gonna go with Alcaraz to win this match. I think Safiulin's gonna be able to take a set, so give me Alcaraz in 4. Just about to hit that 2-hour mark, so we're getting close. Here's a look at Alcaraz's 8th of the draw. We got one more qualifier match against Tommy Paul to go over once the qualifiers are completed. Guys, let me know what you think about this draw. I think it's, you look at these guys and you got Arnaldi, okay, you think, wow, they gave Alcaraz a pretty easy draw. I don't know if I would say that. Safiulin's not an easy customer. Fery is not an easy customer. Duckworth and Walton, the 2 Australians, might play each other. I think Alcaraz will be able to get through them. But then on the other side, you have Tommy Paul, Taranti, Prismic, and Paul lurking. Those are 4 very tough players. But I'm going to stick with Carlos Alcaraz. I think he's going to surprise us coming in here. I think he'll be able to at least get out of his 8th of the draw and make the quarterfinals. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. This was a pretty long video, so thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. So excited to talk to you for the next 2 weeks about the U.S. Open. I think this is going to be such an exciting tournament. It really does feel like for the first time it is wide open for about maybe like 10 players that could potentially take this title. We'll have another video out once the qualifiers have been completed tomorrow to go through the remaining first round matches. So definitely look out for that. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.